Jumping straight back into the project where I'm saving this Mk5 Golf GTI from the scrapyard. I am installing the remaining handbrake cable on the driver's side. This time I'm going for the method of inserting the aluminium tube first, then threading the cable up through it. Still, this job was tricky to get access underneath the carpet, and installing the rubber weather seal into the chassis was as hard as the other side. With the tube installed, it's just a case of pushing the cable up through into the cab. The driver's side handbrake cable is now attached. That'll do. Now both handbrake cables are installed and it's adjusted. I can tuck the carpet up back underneath the rear seat, making sure both cables are flush against the tunnel so they don't get knocked or damaged by legs or feet. Moving back to the front of the car, I cannot free the upright from the hub. I have decided to take the upright and hub off as one. To achieve this, the things left to do are to remove the 3 nuts from the lower arm, then carefully moving the caliper, hoses and sensor wires to one side, which will allow me room to take the upright out. One out. There is no adjustment on the lower arm, as previously suspected, so that's good news. I can bolt it straight back on and it should be aligned. I carried out exactly the same procedure on the driver's side. As the wheel bearing is gone on this side, I'm going to start stripping down the hub. The odds of this rounding off, once I take care of the brake disc securing screw. Yep, that has snapped the bits. Carefully, of course. I rotate the disc and hit it with a medium-sized hammer to free it from the hub. Looks like... Oops. Still good. Looks like the right fit to me. The 4 bolts that hold the wheel bearing to the hub are really corroded, so I am hitting them with some spray, which should give me more of a fighting chance. Let that soak overnight. I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the driver's side. However, this spring is still intact, so there could be more of a bang. With this spring butchered too, I have no need to use spring compressors. Once again, slightly disappointed. So I can remove the top mount. Smooth. Top mount's good. I've got 2 springs now. Before I get the new spring in place, I will clean the areas I won't be able to get access to, like the seat mount. With the upright on the bench, I am cutting the stabilizer link off, as if you remember, I had to cut the other side off, so I will be replacing it with a brand new one. A bit more of a clean, and I can refit the bolt that clamps the upright to the hub, as now they are not going to come apart. Swapping the struts over, I can now do the same to the other side. If I can sort the rounded bolt out, I will reuse this top mount. Having run all of my cutting discs low, it took a bit more time to get this side's stabilizer link off, but with a bit of perseverance, the grinding disc, we got the job done. Just a little tidy up, and after it's rusted back up, no one will know. We have both uprights ready for the springs. I just need to go pick them up. Next, I'll take a look at this bubbling on the wheel arch. I am taking the paint right back and seeing just how far this rust has gone in. Normally, bubbling paint isn't as bad as it really looks. The air bubbles make it look catastrophic, but once I've taken the worst off, other than some minor pitting, it will be okay. And by no means it's rusted through. It's still intact, you can see that's the worst area. I will get some etch primer on, then fill it back to the level of the paint. While I'm in the zone, I am doing a bit of rehab on the chassis leg. Again, this is just surface rust, which I'm taking off with the disc, and I'll put some primer on it, just like on the wheel arch. I will spray those areas as the last job today. so I don't get choked out by the paint. Back to the top mounts, and I am fully removing that rounded bolt that I struggled with in episode 2. I could buy a new top mount, but I don't really want to wait to get one, and it doesn't really need to be replaced, as I have a plan to make it as strong as it was before. What a swine. To remedy this, I'm simply going to use a new bolt. You can see that there are threads in the top mounting plate. For additional support, I will put a new nut on as well once it goes back on the car. Continuing with the theme of damage, I have the driver's side mirror, which is a little worse for wear, so let's get this replaced. I am hoping this is going to be a simple job. The first thing I need to do is pull the plastic backing off of the lens itself. Oh dear. That's my light gone. As it's the factory glass, there are 3 layers. There is the glass, there is the heater element, and then there's the plastic backing plate which clips into the wing mirror. I have to be careful removing the black plastic piece. Can you tell yet that I'm not going to use the heated element? If I break it, I have to get it from Volkswagen, which may take some time, so I'm very carefully prying it from the back. With the pieces separated, all I have to do is remove the film from the lens, then stick the backing plate in the right place. Carefully popping the mirror back into the housing. I double checked all the electrics worked afterwards as far as adjustment goes. All is working as it should. I'm not sure how many years bad luck that is. Slowly but surely we're ticking the jobs off. The passenger side tail light is not working. It's probably got something to do with the fact that this is all apart, so we'll try and get that working next. Can you see the pin on the left? It's super rusty, so I'm presuming that's the problem. Bad earth, maybe? Let's take a look at the plug. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that's probably the problem. See the connection on the right? Bad news. I might try leaving this in baking soda and water. See how well that method works. Baking soda and water. See how that goes. Perfect. Moving to the front of the car, it's time to remove the front bumper. Again, like most things on this car, the small Torx fittings that hold the trim on are prone to snapping, so I had to be really careful as I went along. Not only that, the plastic trims are old. With everything being brittle, I had to take care not to snap anything. The worst screws to remove were the ones that hold the edges of the bumper, but I was lucky this time and I managed to remove both of them. There are more screws that run under the front of the car. I was obviously on a roll because all of these came out too. Pulling the bumper around a bit, clearly it was still attached somewhere. There are always some that get left behind. Eventually I found the last 2 behind the grille. At last, the bumper's off. All that's left is to unplug the fog lights. Unfortunately, this is just a start. I now have to disassemble the front bumper, and I'll explain why in a minute. Slowly but surely, I start releasing the plastic clips from the back side of the bumper. 1 or 2 of them snapped, but that's not the end of the world. The screws that held the number plate on were completely gone, so in the end I had to cut them off with the angle grinder. Progress is now being made. That's the front grille off. Almost 0 damage, not too bad. There we go, that's the bumper disassembled. I will try to replace the wheel bearing. I have the right socket for these triple square heads. Place your bets now, how many of the 4 round out? Come on now. 2. Too good to be true so far. Gonna be 3. I think we're home free now. That's good news. The last 2 bolts were extra stubborn, so I needed to deploy the bar Next, I need to punch the center of the wheel bearing. There is no special technique to this, you just have to go to town.
Hopefully the new one goes in much better.
Before I put the new bearing in, I need to give the housing a really good clean. I cannot use the same method that I did when I removed the old bearing. I need to make sure it sits inside without getting the hammer out. A combination of wire brush, emery cloth and nylon wheel. It's cleaned up well.
I think we're just about ready for the new bearing. Perfect. We also have new bolts. I'm just checking the torque spec for these bolts. It just says FT. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's see what we're working with here. Old spring, new springs. The ones that were on the car were eye-back, so we're probably downgrading, to be quite honest. Slight difference in the thickness. All these cheap ones have got thinner paint on. They look about right though. Looks good. Before I put this top mount on, I will just lubricate the internal slightly with some grease, just to give it a new lease of life.
As these are 25mm lowering springs, luckily there is no need to use spring compressors. I could apply enough force just to get the nut started. Then I could buzz them on. I am guessing the eye-back springs that I removed were lowering springs also, so I am banking on the fact that the new front springs roughly match the rears. Next, I am installing the new stabilizer link. It's just a bit easier than doing it when it's on the car.
This side, the driver's side, is now ready to go back on the car. I won't put the disc on now, just so it's a bit lighter to maneuver. I don't want any more mishaps with the top mount bolts. I'm just giving them a quick clean up. I'm using a jack to aid me to get it up into place.
It's a bit tricky doing this on my own. To hold it up into place, align it, and screw in the top mount bolts, using my old pal Jack as a helper seems to work. Before threading the drive shaft back through the hub, I will clean then lubricate the splines to make assembly and disassembly easier. Once it's in, I can pop the lower arm back on, then wind the hub nut in. After lubricating that also. On goes the stabilizer link to the anti-roll bar. Disc back on with a new securing screw. Spigot ring and wheel nuts. Then tighten up the securing screw.
Like new. I'm going to hold off putting the caliper back on until I've decided if I'm going to get some uprated pads or not. So the last thing to do for now on this corner is do this hub bolt up. 185 foot-pounds and then 180 degrees. I lied, it's 148 foot-pounds, which is 200 Newton meters, and then 180 degrees. I don't think this has been wound so tight in its life.
As I'm reusing the drive shaft bolts, the additional 180 degrees is probably not a good idea, as they are most likely to be stretch bolts. So I'm going to 200 Newton meters with a torque wrench, then maybe a quarter of a turn with the bar, and to be honest, that's about all I can muster.
I'd say that's tight enough.
Moving on, I do exactly the same to the other side. Greasing the top mount. Installing the spring. Clamping on the top mount. This time I didn't use my friend Jack, I just persevered. Drive shaft on. Lower arm on. Hub nut on. Drop link to anti-roll bar. This time I installed it after, so I had to do the top up as well. .200 Newton meters.
Oops.
Then it kind of went downhill.
Oh no. Bent it. Yeah, I'd say that's tight enough. One more thing, track rod ends need to go on. That's a whole lot of grief right there. If you enjoyed this episode of the GTI restoration project, give it a thumbs up. We have already replaced plenty of parts, so we're getting there piece by piece. Hit that subscribe button. This car is going to be wrapped, so leave a comment below which colour you would wrap the car, and I'll see you very soon.